Reporters Roundtable provides viewers with in-depth examination of issues reported on leading media outlets across the world. A lively panel of journalists with comprehensive knowledge in all fields of endeavor, be it politics, health, business, sports, entertainment, information, communication technology, gender, law, international affairs and diplomacy, and a host of others will objectively dissect the matter of contention. On Reporters Roundtable, fairness, objectivity, factuality, and non-partisanship is our hallmark. It's the Double RT Show with Rebecca Ewa. This and every other Thursday from 10 to 12 GMT. Make a date with us. The Reporters Roundtable, all angles, all sides. Right, happy New Day. Good to have you join us for another interesting edition of the Reporters Roundtable, where fairness and non-partisanship is our hallmark. Find us on Facebook at Reporters Roundtable. Send us an email, reportersroundtable@gmail.com, a text on 02444754442, and we'll be glad to let the world know your concerns. Do you know that the President, John Dramani Mahama, on the advice of the Council of State and in exercise of his constitutional powers under Article 72 of the 1992 Constitution on Monday, August 23, remitted the remaining prison centers imposed on 2 social commentators and a host of an Accra-based radio station, Montie FM, Salifu Maase, also known as Mugabe, Alistair and Gunn? Well, yes, a statement has been issued to that effect. The Montie 3 the court also slapped a fine of 10,000 Ghana Cedis each for the contemnors for threatening to murder judges of the Apex Court if they are ruling in an electoral roll case brought against the Electoral Commission does not favor the Commission. A statement signed by the Minister for Communications, Dr.Edward Omane Boamah, said the remission takes effect from Friday, 26th August, that is tomorrow. The 3 who were sentenced on 27 July 2016 and have served 4 weeks of the 4-month prison sentence imposed on them. They are said to have also paid the 10,000 Ghana Cedis fine. The statement indicated that the President's decision to remit their sentence was on compassionate grounds following a petition submitted to him by the contemnors to exercise his prerogative of mercy, even as they continue to express deep remorse and regret for the unacceptable statements they made against the judiciary. The President used the opportunity to remind all Ghanaians of the need to respect institutions of state and exercise freedom of speech responsibly, mindful of the need to preserve peace and national unity. However, the President's granting of the remission has sparked mixed reaction from the public, political parties, and civil society groups. While some see the move by the President as an abuse of the presidency, there are those who think the President, through his singular action, has exposed himself as being very partisan and in turn brought public ridicule to the judiciary. On Reporters Roundtable today, we look at the implication of the President's decision and if indeed he has made a mockery of the judiciary. Can this in any way affect his chances in the December polls, and is the opposition going to use the remission as a campaign message? My guest in the studio to do this discussion is George Sapo. He is a journalist and with Unique FM. Tai Kicha is the editor-in-chief of Radio Ghana, and Osei Bonsu Dixon is a legal practitioner. We'll be joined later by Osei Kojo, who is a media law lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. My name is Rebecca Ewa. Let me tell you that my my shirt is provided by Ashrifia, where you can locate them near the Goy filling station in Adentang. And the good thing is that today, Health Works Ghana would want to take up the health needs of my guests and myself, so they will treat them to some massage. Maybe from tomorrow, so you have a free massage from here. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wait, let me start with you, lawyer.
Okay.
Ordinarily, as we understand remission, is remission the same as pardon?
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much.
I think that the first thing is that once the Constitution actually sequestrates these two things, makes a distinction between it within the supreme law itself, the Constitution, I do not think that they are the same. That is even to begin with. If you're dealing with pardon, you are dealing largely with forgiveness. Contextually, you're dealing with forgiveness. And if you're dealing with remission, then you're dealing with lessening or commuting or demuting that particular charge or that particular sanction, you understand? In the case that we have before us, then you give a number of years or a number of months, but then it's then lessened to given a lesser term. So it's a question of then lessening the term as opposed to a total forgiveness, as in the fact that the criminal elements we're dealing with here have been totally, purged off, as if they haven't committed any offense at all.
Okay, so with the case as we have it now, the contemnors or the convicts, can I call them that?
Yes, they are convicts.
Yeah. They are to be freed by tomorrow. Sure. So are we to say that their sentence have been lessened, or they are free of the charge and they can go scot-free without anything?
Technically, I do not believe that they are entirely free of it. They are as convicts, okay. Here, you're dealing with, like I said, a lessening of the prison tenure. The tenure that they must serve in prison has been lessened. That is what has been done. It's not as if they are, it's like a complete pardon. They never did anything. They never committed any offense at all, which would have been in the case had it been like a pardon. But there's a bit of unclarity still along these lines. And I think that in the fullness of time, we will begin to look at the clear ramifications of what exactly it's unraveling in this particular situation. Yes.
Because I don't know, my viewers may be confused just as I am, because if the people are to go scot-free by tomorrow, then I don't get it, because even the statement wasn't so clear as to, even though it was on compassionate grounds, we were not told whether they still have the case hanging around their necks or not.
No, they went to court. The court found them guilty. The court punished them and sentenced them to a term. So there were a tenure in cell. Now, from what the president is saying, these are persons who have brought, an application to him for him to, pardon or what not, for him to forgive them or whatever they
For
a pardon that they have been asking for. But from what we are seeing, in fact, the popular language that is today in currencies, it's been remitted.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. Otherwise, the Constitution would then have been be tautological. There's a difference there. I do not think that they've been totally purged of the fact that they have been they are convicts, ex-convicts. It's just that, the president has exercised prerogative of mercy and has lessened the duration that they have to stay in a prison cell. I think that is the important aspect of it.
Right. Let me take your thought again. George and Tay, I'll come to you shortly. The ground for the remission, in your assessment, is it solid enough? Compassionate grounds. So says the statement.
You see, in my opinion, and this is my candid opinion here, I think that if you look at this whole issue, the president has a constitutional power to do whatever he has done. There is absolutely no ambiguity about that because of Article 72. Okay. The issue has to do with political ethics. Whether what he has done, given the nature and the gravity of and the surrounding circumstances of this particular thing, whether it is appropriate to do so. Because he's allowed the Supreme Court to run its full length and to convict them. The Constitution requires that if he has to exercise any intervening act, remitting them, pardoning them, whatever he wants to do, he must do so not on advice, but in consultation with the Council of State. He's allowed that process to follow. The Council of State has been consulted in discussion. In his wisdom, he thinks, but if you look at the surrounding circumstances, one, it is partisan. Majority, or about 90% of those who are asking for the president to do what he's doing are his own political flock. That is one. The people who are involved are members of his political flock. So he walks a tight line. He walks a very tight line. The moment he departs and decides to grant them pardon or remission or whatever you want to call it, he will definitely come for flogging, and he'll be flogged, and he's been flogged. I do not, in my view, I do not think that presidents will not act uncontroversially. Presidents do act uncontroversially. It is a very controversial one. The difficulty is that you're asking whether it is proper. Well, I don't know. He said he might be exercising discretion here. Normally, you would have expected that if it was maybe on medical grounds, the people were extremely very sick, vexatiously sick, people would understand. The people were expressing remorse, even when, but they were actually saying that we're ready to go to prison, do this, do that. They were actually pouring some oil even into the fire. And apart from that one too, because of the political stripes that this thing calls up for, So my view comes to this, that he will be seen more as having acted in a partisan way than in a nationalistic manner.
Great, George.
Yes,
I can see you writing something. Just air your views.
Lawyer just mentioned that, well, usually if president grants such reliefs, it's when the person is sick or there have been some health challenges with that person. But compassion and mercy, I don't think it's conditional. I mean, if I want to have compassion on someone, or I want to be merciful on someone, there's no need for that person to be sick or to be in a very critical situation. The Lord himself forgives us, whether we are rich, poor, healthy or not. The Lord himself has compassion on us, whether we are in good health or not. So compassion and mercy is not conditional. I mean, yes, they did something wrong. And such things will obviously go for people who have done wrong things, not for people who have not done something bad. So, yes, it's the president's constitutional duty. Has he erred constitutionally? No. Has he erred legally? No. Now, if you listen to what most people are saying, is based on politics. And the whole case is a political case. I mean, trying to put the two together in terms of politics, the three actually, politics, media, and the law, that's where the confusion is. But the whole case is a political case. And the president acted within the constitution. And a member of the Council of State has said that if somebody thinks he or she has got a problem with the remission given to the three, the person can go to court and challenge it.
Yeah. All right, but what I gather from George then, if it's a strictly political case, his premise was based on religion. The Lord is merciful to whoever. The Lord is this.
Because of the word compassion.
Great.
And mercy, which some people think should be conditional. I don't think compassion and mercy should be conditional.
But the Lord also punishes whoever goes wrong. When it comes to religion, is a double-edged something.
But if you go to the Lord, he forgives you.
No, but should we tie in religion? Because I know the law itself follows the tenets of society. And these are people that have been caught by the law based on something that they have done. On compassionate grounds, what is your take?
Well, to begin with, I have to make my position clear that I did not like what they did. Number one. I think they did a very bad thing for which they had to be punished. I also agree that the judges are custodians of our morals, and they have every right to right us when we are going wrong morally. My case is not whether it's compassion or mercy. Yes, the president has a right to grant them, to be compassionate towards them, yes. He has a right to be merciful towards them, yes, under the Constitution, right. But when you look at the thing critically, and based on something I read from the majority leader, the president in the first place accepted the conviction of the three. He accepted the conviction of the three. He also accepted that the court was right in slapping both custodial sentence and a fine on them. The president, however, maybe disagreed with the severity of the whole thing, for which he decided to reduce it, and he has done so. You understand? But as to whether, yes, it's political. That was why the first time I said, look, if the president should grant them pardon or remission or whatever, he'll be walking into a minefield. And the lawyer said he's being flogged. Yes, you'll be flogged for this. But as he said too, politicians cannot thrive without controversy. Politics itself has a lot of controversies. So this is one of them. But I feel the guys might have learned their lesson by now. Because to be, for your freedom to be taken away and for you to confined, it's not an easy feeling. I believe so. I've never been to prison, never visited any prison, but just passing by these one prison gives me the jitters, so I can understand. You understand? I believe they might have learned their lesson. Let's see whether it will impact positively on you, and me, who are broadcasters and journalists, whether we'll learn anything from it.
But Gunn, one other side too, you know, if you look at the statement issued by the communication minister, you realize that the president decided to stay between those who are calling for him to pardon and those who are saying do not pardon. He just went for the middle. Okay, I'll remit their sentences. So then in the middle, I have not pardoned them. Neither have I decided to keep them in there, but I've decided to just reduce their sentence. Just in the middle there.
Right. Okay. It's still Reporters Roundtable. And I would want to tell you that Reporters Roundtable will from next week bring to our cherished viewers profile of some of the constituencies ahead of the December polls, and we will be starting from the Tema West constituency. So our viewers in the Tema West constituency should watch out for the Reporters Roundtable as we interact with them and take their concerns to those who want to represent them in Parliament. So there you have it. The constituency profile comes up next week. We start with Tema West, where we have Carlos Ahinkra and lawyer James Eno contesting for that seat. And let me remind you that over the weekend, Dr. Sesu of Health Works will be giving my guest and myself a very good massage so that it distresses us from all the things that we've gone through, and they are taking all the health needs. So you can find Dr. Sesu on Facebook, or you can visit their Facebook page on HealthWorks Ghana. HealthWorks, or you can call Dr. Sesu on 0244-253-681. HealthWorks, a new dimension in wellness. And my clothes is provided by Ashrifia Wear. Yes, I rock Ashrifia. Also find them near the Goy filling station in Adenta. Call Ashrifia Wear on 0242-526-788. We'll be back shortly with the Reporters Roundtable. We have Mr. Osei Kojo in the house. He is a media law lecturer at the GIJ. He will join us soon after this break.
Action.
Agriculture is Ghana's most important economic sector, employing almost half of the population. All right, so welcome back. I told you earlier that we have Mr. Osei Kojo here in the studio. He is a media law lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism and a practicing lawyer, right?
That's
great. Nice to have you.
I'm glad.
All right, earlier we were discussing what remission is all about and what pardon stands for. And again, whether the grounds, right, for the pardon or for the remission, let me say, was solid enough. Let me take your thoughts on that.
As I sat here waiting and listening, I saw that my colleagues had almost said everything. And I was also happy when my brother said the whole thing is political. But as it is, they are acting or dramatizing the politics within the context of the law. So you realize that the law has given them a framework, and now everybody is saying what he wants or otherwise. So if you chase the discussions, you might get or end up realizing that it is politics more than the law. They are quoting the law all right. But somebody will tell you that, yes, he has done it constitutionally, so he's not done anything. The same person will turn around and say, no, he has made a mistake. So the bottom line is, it is politics. Now, one good thing about politics is that politics is good. So all that is happening is good. There's nothing bad about what is happening at all, except that we will have to now deepen our understanding of both politics and the law. Now, if we don't do that, but rather we throw out what is not true, as my brother said, now it's a matter between the media, law, and politics. Now, if the media would throw out things which are not true, and those watching who don't understand the law and perhaps don't understand politics, listen, that's where we might have a problem. So as it is, I would say what is going about is all politics. But in talking about the law, you ask the question, how come the law? How come Article 72? You may not have the answer, or you have.
I'm here to find out from you, but let me
land. But we have thrown away one important document, and from here, go look for it. We all should go and look for it. I don't know where I've put mine. And that is the memorandum which brought about this 1992 Constitution. That memorandum has given reasons for all the provisions in the Constitution. So if we are caught somewhere in a quagmire, one major source where we can derive some direction to understand the provision is to go for the memorandum. So somewhere around 1992, most of us have both the memorandum and the document proper, the 1992 Constitution. But it looks as if now the memorandum has been pushed or thrown away, and then it's the Constitution, because in the memorandum you find the wisdom
behind Article 72
of the framers
of the Constitution.
And now you can now follow.
But can I make a point?
Can I make a point? I think that, how do you call it, what Council is talking about is very relevant. I mean, these memorandums will give us some clue or guidance as to those provisions. But I think it's also a very healthy one in the sense that we're dealing with a matter that touches on constitutions and constitutionalism.
Good.
What this is also throwing into the fore is issues to do with the separation of powers and checks and balances. I mean, if you move way back, for those who did political history or who did government and all, you remember somebody called Baron de Montesquieu. Yes, many years ago, I mean, I think 1748, he wrote a book called The Spirit of Laws, the laws, and talked about the nature of governance and said that governance should be tripartite. You should have the legislature, you should have the executive. We have bought into it. In fact, he wrote it for the French. But those who fell in love with it was the Americans, because they went ahead to actually implement exactly what Montesquieu was preaching. If you situate what we are doing today, or what we have in this country today, I mean, you are having checks and balances at play. The executive has allowed the judiciary to do its work. And it would appear that if you bring it within that remit of separation of powers, the president under Article 72 is activating those powers that check judicial power, regardless of whether it's the highest court or it's the lowest court, regardless. Now, if you go deep into the Constitution, you see all these checks embedded. The president appoints the judges, but he doesn't have a full slot because Parliament must either affirm or disaffirm. When they do so, it does not trouble the democracy we are preaching or the democracy we are practicing. When the legislatures, those in Parliament, having entered Parliament with the sovereignty that surrounds them, make law, the Supreme Court, under the same Constitution, can put a full stop to the laws they make by exercising judicial review. In fact, let me be honest with you. What the president has done is bringing to the fore this tariff discussion about separation of powers, checks and balances. A question therefore then emerges. What he has done, is it subject to judicial review?
Yeah.
Yes, it is possible. It is possible that others might think that, in a constitutional era such as ours, we must test every aspect of the law. If the president has acted in this way, that is, he's done his act.
Okay.
But then others can also take him back to court and to look for grounds within the same constitution, because you should look at Article 1.2 if an act is inconsistent with this constitution. So that is something
But
as
can
a
we
watchdog.
describe this act as inconsistent with the constitution?
But even George, the issue is for those who think that the action is a bit overboard, to look for a legal ground, not an emotional ground, not a political ground, but a legal ground, a constitutional ground. And if they do find one, I'm sure they will be saved by Article 1.2.
Right, but would you say that the power that was exercised by the president was
overboard?
Certain? No. As Article 72 and 292 makes reference to it, there has to be certainty, there has to be fairness, there has to be consistency. Is it consistent? Is it certain? Is it fair? Can we say that? My journalist, I'll come to you. Let me deal with the law.
That's the politics of it. You see, the questions you are answering are political questions.
No, but it's in the law. Article 72 and 292 makes reference to those.
But the fairness is now being defined by the politicians. And I'll extend my brother's submissions further to say that, for instance, if you also look at the sociology of the law within the context of Montesquieu and John Locke, this separation of power is the will that is behind the administration of the country.
Yeah.
It is the will that is pushing it or pulling it or running it. So the question is, when it is in action, the concept of separation is in action, what are the philosophical principles behind it? You realize that we normally talk about sovereignty, and as he said, the sovereign power of the country. Where does it lie? If I should ask you.
The people. The Constitution makes it clear.
Good. So now, if power has been divided into three, where do you find the people? You find the people in the legislature being represented.
Sure.
You find the people in the executive being represented, but you don't find the people in the judiciary. So now the question becomes, then how do we tame or deal with the judiciary because there are human beings there, and we all agree that the judiciary can also go wrong. That's why they even have that review powers, and we are being told they are not bound by their previous decisions. So we are acknowledging the fallibility of even the judiciary.
So there is human.
That is so. So you see that now, this being the principle or framework, you find it the same principle in America, but in a different way. You find the same principle in Britain, but in a different way. You find the same principle in Ghana, but in a different way. So for instance, in Britain, where do you find this principle? You realize that the judiciary, one way or the other, is embedded in the legislature. Now when you come to Ghana, where is ours placed? It is sitting somewhere like the American example. But you realize that now this Article 72 did not go to the judiciary or did not go to the legislature. Why you find in the UK that maybe it will lie with the legislature, but you find that it has been given to the executive. Then you ask yourself the question, why? Why was this placed with the executive and not with the legislature? You see, so these are some of the questions I want us philosophically to answer. Then when we set this properly, and then we come and look at the facts, Montie facts. then now you can begin to situate the discussions properly.
Can I make a point?
Oh no, you are right. You see, but one thing too I've realized about the law is that if the law answers political questions, this is what we face. The politicians are out there dramatized. They'll drag you. They'll bring the thing to you. Answer the question.
But you know, in as much as we are agreeing that, I mean, this is a political case, and of course we have the media also in there. I mean, politics and the media, we are all supposed to work within the law.
Definitely.
So the law is that supreme above the politics.
Of course.
And so whatever you do as a politician or whatever you do as a media person must be consistent with the law. If it is not, then there's a problem there. So the question now here is that what the president did, was it consistent with the law? Good. What the journalist also did, was it also consistent with the law? If we are able to find answers to these things, then we can just get some headway.
Yes,
Can I make a point?
So to add to what I just said, now we should now mark ourselves as developing or moving steps up. Political development, constitutional development, social development. So when we come into this area, we ask ourselves whether, yes, are we moving up? So you realize that now the questions and the discussions will tell us that we are moving up or not. And honestly, decisions that come in some jurisdictions determine the level of development. So for instance, you hear of a judge say, or a judge in the name of maybe Denny.
Lord Denny.
Yes, Lord Denny. Then you see that his peak was at the point where British law was moving and developing. So we ask ourselves whether our decisions come, I would say we should come very close, 100% to Denny, but are we moving? If we realize that we are not moving and rather we are answering political questions, because Lord Denny will put a decision down there. Fine, you may find fault with it, though, but you realize, because most of his decisions first were dissenting decisions, before later on they became the law. So these are some of the things I personally am looking at within the context of development, so that all the politics we are doing, is it moving us forward, or it is making us stagnant?
Council, let me make just one point. That's a point.
Okay,
that's a point. I think that for the benefit of those who listen to us, he's asked very intrusive questions. I mean, he's used a British example, he's used it. But I just want to clarify something. The British is a fusion of powers. The Americans are a separation of powers. We are not practicing in our country the British model. The British model is a prime ministerial model. We're practicing the presidential model, in which the sovereignty issues that we raise, like in American system, lie outside the legislature. It doesn't lie with, because in Britain they believe in the supremacy of the legislature. In Ghana we don't. We believe that the people are supreme. So if the people find something wrong with their governance, it is for the people to go under Article 1 to point it out, regardless. You should look at the cases that have actually preceded these cases. Cases like, what's it called, the Riakuto cases and all those things. It must guide us. You can move any citizen of this country. You don't need any of the East organs to act if they are not acting. So that's just what I wanted to say. But I think that the question that let me add
a little bit to your. You see, our case. I agree with what you have said. But if you look at our case, for instance, in Britain, ministers are picked from where? From the
legislature.
Here, a certain percentage is picked. As he rightly said, strict separation of powers too, you can find in Ghana, you can find. So the question is, what is our time?
Ours is hybrid.
Yes. So,
we don't have a clear Ghanaian time.
So this hybrid.
But let me put my two lawyers on hold. My two lawyers, please. Let me put you on hold. Okay. Let me bring you in now. There are those who say that the president did not act voluntarily, but succumbed to political pressure. Would you say so?
That is where I would agree with my brother here. That the thing is being acted out politically. Surely the president was put under political pressure. Like one said here, those who signed the petition,
even within his party.
But they are Ghanaians first.
They are Ghanaians first. Yes.
They are Ghanaians first.
That is clear.
Judge, relax. Let him make his point.
But without the political, we can ask ourselves that without the political pressure, would the president have taken this decision? Would he have given the remission? You understand? Because you see, from my point of view, I feel that the Montie 3 did not do well. They acted at a time when, on the media scene, people are spewing, excuse my language, trash. A lot of unsavory words, a lot of, how do I call it? Insults. Most people were suffering from microphone psychosis. That was, oh yes.
I see. This is the first time I'm hearing this.
No, because I've said it here before, that the microphone can do two things. The microphone can scare you and make you stumble. The microphone can make you overconfident and make you spew trash and say things you ought not to say. And that's what I tell microphone psychosis. And a lot of us on the media scene currently and in this political season are suffering from that. Because you listen to radio stations, you listen to what people say, you listen to how people moderate programs. It makes you feel that something ought to be done. And mind you, the judges are also custodians of morals in a way. So would they sit and allow these things to go on without setting an example? That is a question I ask myself. Were they right in doing that? I would say yes. Because you bring it down to the family level, will you allow your child to be that insubordinate? You understand? Will you allow your son to talk in a way that is untoward towards the uncle, the elder brother? You understand? So basically I see it in that form, that something should be done to ensure that we don't poison the atmosphere. After all, he said something, that those who listen to us, or say you said it, that you know, people who listen to us also learn from us. So if we go out there and we say things that will poison the atmosphere, what are we doing to our society? What are we doing to our people? You understand? So whatever happened, and we are learning from it. The question is, you and I, and on here, media people, are we going to learn from this? Are the media institutions going to use this as a test case and up the way we train our people to come out and practice? So totally, like he said, I see it as a development process. Yes, we'll learn from this, we'll build on and on and on till we will not be perfect, and we'll get to an appreciable level of media consciousness and media performance and output.
Right, George.
Yes.
Should the president have even yielded to such pressures, like political pressures, if there were even such?
Well, he went through a process. I mean, people petitioned the president. The Constitution said that he would work in consultation with the Council of State, which he did. The expectation is that, which, unless otherwise, we know that the Council of State advised the president on that grounds, and based on that, the president decided to give them remission. As of whether he felt political pressure or not, first of all, those who petitioned the president, yes, they have a political party. Yes, they're affiliates. Most of them are affiliates to the NDC, but they're first Ghanaians before a member of any political party. Does the law allow for them to petition the president as Ghanaians? Yes. Tay was talking about, have we learned our lessons? So unfortunately, all the problems we are going through, partly the judiciary should take part of the blame. Then the National Media Commission decided to come up with a law, the Content Standardization Law, to check some of these things. Giba, who happens to be a member of the National Media Commission, along with some other organizations, sent that law to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that that law should be put on hold. Some of the justices who sat on that case between the National Media Commission and those who didn't want the Content Standardization Law, some of the justices also sat on this same contempt case. Now, this is the issue. If the Supreme Court had allowed that law to go and say that we should be practicing it, then we can hold these people to something very tangible, not on contempt. Then we can tell the Montie 3 that if you pick the NMC law on content standardization, you have gone against this particular provision, that particular provision, and there's punishment for you. If you pick that same content standardization law, it had a provision for owners. Then, if the owners are punished, just as the Supreme Court punished the owners, nobody can cry foul, because within the law, that law that was supposed to be passed, within that law, there's supposed to be a punishment for owners. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not allow that law to come out. The Supreme Court's ruling was that, hold on, and let's have all consultation done first. And now this is where we find ourselves.
But did it go through Parliament?
It went through Parliament. It went through everything. Second aspect, the broadcasting law is still not out. So at the end of the day, we'll sit down, we'll talk, but there's nothing to hold the media that, listen, what you're doing is wrong, what you're doing is right. And there's nothing for you to even quote to refer the media to. Of course, we have a GGA code of ethics, but how many journalists respect that code of ethics? But if you have a law that is recognized by everybody, and you go against that law, you know very well that you're supposed to be punished, you work in line. But you see, we are behaving like ostriches. We know what to do. We are deliberately not doing it.
Why?
We are deliberately not doing it.
No, you want the answer.
And when the problem comes up, then we start pointing fingers. Meanwhile, we forget that we know what to do. Let's have these laws in place. Let's have these provisions in place.
No,
then we can work.
George, your submission is right to some extent, but my question then comes in. Even without the law, as a person, you have morals.
Exactly.
You have something binding you within. It is within that tells you how to live your life, tells you how to come out.
My sister,
So
I'm not cutting you short. You see, that is why at times we do something at GIG, which I don't think is right though, but I say, I know there are so many media schools around, but I'll tell you that you didn't come to GIG. That's why maybe you are doing what you are doing. Because the training institutions, there is a course that you must do before you come out.
Thank you.
And that is ethics.
Thank you.
Now, our boundaries as journalists is so porous that anybody who can speak good P, who can speak good English, is a full-fledged journalist.
Need I talk again?
Doesn't know anything, but he goes, takes this powerful thing, sits in front of it, puts two politicians here and there, knock their heads together, he has finished his job.
How do we control that? Let's get the broadcasting bill.
Yeah, sure.
Let's get
You see, so what you are saying, the ethics. And if you are taught ethics, I teach ethics. That's why I GIG. And it's more like a sermon. It's more like a sermon. So if those you are preaching to, if they have the calling of becoming journalists through and through, proper, you should tag them. And when, for instance, a politician calls you to go and say this, destroy this person, which you know is not good.
Mr. Osei,
You might not do it.
Mr. Osei, I understand your point perfectly.
But as it is, you see, as it is, he says the Supreme Court has allowed a lacuna, has allowed some space. And the politicians have cashed in. And now, the media being so powerful and can reach everywhere, they have taken over the media. And they are doing this to us. And now they bring this political question to the Supreme Court. Answer. And when you answer a political question, that is where you see here and there pressure.
Yeah,
and
with your point well made. How
I think my
about the
brother
person? Yeah, he will come in. I'll bring him in
I'm
right
opening
away.
the gate for him.
But the windows are closed. No problem.
But you know, how about just as you made mention of somebody who can speak good Chi, who can speak good Ghana, who can speak good Ever or English, then the person takes this great tool and wants to disseminate information, bring to politicians and all of that. How about the person who never stepped into the classroom to learn the ethics you are talking about, but yet the person is in this field? That is where I was bringing in the issue of morals. It is like a plan.
God has,
that you have within. How about that one too?
But you know, we cannot have human beings all being perfect or all deciding the same way. Some are incorrigible. Others too, when they see that something is not good, they'll throw your way or your line that, I think this is not good, I'll not do it. But there are some. You see, that's why at times we are saying that if you are born a thief, if you even wear the cassock, you are still a thief.
You know,
A
Becky,
decorated monkey.
Yes, so if you are the type that will always want to do bad things and you come into journalism, you realize that you cherish what you should not do. Even if maybe you've come to a school where you've been taught ethics, and you go out there, because when you go out there, the power is yours. You have your, that's why the Constitution says you are responsible for whatever you do. Yes, you'll be taught all right, but when you go out there, so if your house, the media house, does not have a policy, you see, so I wonder whether the media houses have inside policy.
But you know what? Let me make a point. Let me make a point.
Let me come to the gate a little.
Yes. In fact, I think all well and good. What Jose was talking about is very relevant. He teaches ethics, and I'm not surprised that, how do you call it, he's injecting that, which is a very useful thing, because it's not only in the media that you need the ethics. Even in politics, you need ethics. Go and Google it. It's political ethics. Otherwise, it becomes a very, chaotic game, which is so vile and evil. In sports, you need ethics, so that when others win, you can congratulate them and tell them that, congratulations, but next time prepare for a bigger fight. You understand? And so I think this thing must spread across. But my thing is that he was talking about the media law and the Supreme Court stopping it and all those things. I think that the issues to look at is that we have the Supreme Court is a custodian of this Constitution. It's a guardian behind this Constitution, because and in that regard, you have to look at two things. If you actually bring a law that is violative of fundamental principles, it is their duty to strike that law down before it causes harm. That was what was with that particular.
But the Constitution also talks about.
No, just a moment. Okay. You should also be careful about the notion of censorship. We have ever passed through a period of censorship. And so when the couching of a law it's proximate to censorship, then you should also be the second point, be very careful about it. That is not to say that you shouldn't have those laws. He said also a third one, that we do not have the laws and all those ones. I beg to disagree. We do have. We have tort law, which are violative acts that we do against each other and things like that. We also have criminal law and all those things. You have the law on contempt. Like it or leave it.
Do we declare law on contempt?
We have, yes. The superior court, including the Supreme Court, can commit for contempt onto themselves. That's what you're saying.
That's where the problem is. That's where the problem is.
Wait, the Constitution is a statute. The Constitution itself is a statute. Do not forget that point. Now, what I'm saying is that in developing laws, the lawyers will tell you that we have something we call common law. Common law is judge-made law, precedential law, decisional law. So what they are doing forms part of the common law that law students begin to study. You begin to rummage through this law and to find the principles that are now guiding our exercise of free speech. The Supreme Court, look at if you read their ruling, they're not against free speech. We are here engaged in free speech. It would be ludicrous if they were against it. What they are against is acts which, one, undermine judges while they are working, because they say there is clear law to suggest that you shouldn't do that, and you know it. Then you also raise other issues to do with and I think it's Secretary who raised the issue about the stations. And another platform, I've argued that on the same point, that media stations, for a long time, were not taking media law significantly or seriously. I'm sure now you're going to take media law seriously, and you are going to ask people to go on courses when he writes proposals, I'm sure you're going to do that. At GIG. Yes, and apart from that one too, you are learning a lot of things. I have a book I've written, it's called Principles of Security Law. And in some portion, I discuss constitutional issues that are important for those who protect our freedoms. Which, for instance, one of those principles have to do with the principle of limited government. The powers that are given for government and even for the citizens are normally not a limitable power. They are not powers without limitations. Not even the Supreme Court. I've heard people discuss as if the Supreme Court, for instance, is so sacrosanct that it has whatever it does. There must be a check against judicial excess too. Because
Article 72.
Yes, and Article 72 is a valiant check. The exercise of that power is debatable. That I can accept. But the point is that for all the powers of government, we should not create a demigod in any of these. Not our president, not our parliament, and not our judiciary. And the point that is getting all this is largely because of the politics that he correctly identified. We are immersed in too much of politicking, but it is good that you're bringing professionals to bear their thoughts on these matters, so that at least we get some clarity on it. So, point well taken. Those laws about, broadcasting and all those, and I'm definitely for it. I think they need to go through some refinement so that they can be presented in it. But if the Supreme Court actually stays some of these laws in the process, it does so for good reason. Because like I've said, censorship has been part of, media history in this country.
I don't think the National Media Commission would like to introduce censorship.
No, but what they brought, I'm not referring to specific, but I'm saying that the Supreme Court stated it on legal grounds, you understand? And so when it's on legal grounds, you can revisit those things, but you must bring it in a manner that does not conflict with fundamental principles. I believe that law had issues also with fundamental principles. Sometimes, let me give you an example. Okay. You're dealing with some of the LIs that we have passed, like those ones on voters and all those ones. Nobody ever thought that the notion that NHIS cards that if you use them could lead to, allowing foreigners or persons